Since I got the iPhone 6 Plus, I've been using it a lot for gaming. My logic for buying it was that I wanted to consolidate devices anyway. So, instead of having a phone and a tablet, I'd get this thing and be able to use it for a lot more than I would for either of those individually. One of the things I noticed was that I was also using it to play a lot of games instead of going to my PS Vita or to my laptop. And what I found is it's actually a surprisingly good device for it. It's got a great screen, it's powerful. So let's get started. I'll show you some of the prettier games on here. So this is Spiderman Unlimited. It's set in the Spiderman Unlimited universe. This is kind of like an endless runner, like Temple Run. I mean, these games' story doesn't really matter. The key is that it's, addicting gameplay that you can do one-handed. Now, one of the things that people seem to be worried about with iPhone 6 Plus is that it's just too big to, have to actually touch and interact with all the time. You have to stretch your thumb to get to the various parts of the screen. But what I found is that for one-handed gaming, it's actually perfect because most games on the iPhone are designed for playing with one hand. So they try to not have you actually have to reach for most of the corners for doing things. Like with this, I can touch pretty much anywhere on the screen and swipe around and do all the things I need to do for gameplay. This is Lego Lord of the Rings, fun entry in the Lego series that takes place in the Lord of the Rings movie universe. The one thing about the iPhone 6 Plus is that it really is a device that's meant more for two-handed use. Most people don't want to have to do that with their phone. They kind of prefer just, being able to quickly tap things away with one hand. But with gaming, you're using two hands anyway. So it feels a lot more natural to hold it in your hands, and it doesn't feel like it's a burden. But at the same time, I feel like you're kind of missing out on having this giant 1080p screen because you have to kind of cover up the content in order to play. Now, the other big problem with two-handed use is that you get a lot out of it from playing with music. And if you listen, let me turn that on really quickly. The speakers are still kind of tinny on the iPhone 6 Plus. They're a lot better than they used to be, as pretty much everything else is on the device. But it's not optimal for getting into the mood and hearing story, especially if you're on the go. So you want to plug in headphones, right? Now the problem with that is plugging in headphones totally affects your grip in a very negative way. It's kind of awkward to hold. You can't get a good position either hand. If you flip it, it's on top, it's a little bit better, but it's not optimal. One solution for getting two-handed play to not kind of dampen the experience a little bit is using M5 controllers, which is a new thing that Apple introduced last year with iOS 7, where now game developers have a standard control set that they can use, and anyone who buys one of these M5 controllers can use it and know that they'll work with a pretty wide variety of games. Let's prop up this guy, and then I've got the SteelSeries Stratus controller. These controllers just sync up to your iPhone or iPad over Bluetooth, and suddenly you've got analog sticks, directional pad, full-on, A, B, X, Y buttons like you'd see on, an Xbox controller. This is small enough of a controller that, if I'm consolidating and saying I don't want to carry my phone, my tablet, and say my PlayStation Vita on a plane, I can just tuck this into my bag and suddenly I've got something closer to a full-on console experience. And this works with, action RPGs like this, first-person shooters like BioShock work really well with a controller. So here I am playing XCOM, a strategy game made by 2K Games and Firaxis. So this was built to run on the A7, last year's model. On the A8, there is absolutely no stuttering. The graphics look amazing, panning around. They've got great shading and particle effects going on. The characters are well detailed. They have lots of destruction in the environment that you can see. It's overall very impressive. One of the other big reasons that graphics are going to get a lot better on these devices over the next year or so is a new toolkit for developers that Apple announced this year at WWDC, its developer conference. It's called Metal, and basically what it lets developers do is code things specifically for the hardware in the iPhone and iPad. You're actually, using the dedicated hardware in a device and taking advantage of it as much as you can. The last big issue with big, complex 3D games on previous iPhones was that they would absolutely kill your battery life. Playing something like this is a Goat Simulator, a recently released game built on the Unreal Engine that's kind of like the old Tony Hawk games, but you're a goat and you are basically trying to cause as much destruction and fun pranks as you can. A game like this previously you'd get a couple hours of battery life on your phone. It would drop tens of percents in a matter of hours if you were playing. With the iPhone 6 Plus, they've got a lot more space to dissipate heat. So I've played, this is kind of embarrassing to admit, but hours of this game and have had no issues with heating up. The other thing is that the battery in the iPhone 6 Plus is about 50% bigger than the one in the iPhone 6. So it's kind of like having a Mophie battery case added on to your phone anyway. It's not just about the phone and the tablet and the fact that it has really high-end cameras, so you don't need to point and shoot. This is also becoming like a really viable device for hardcore gamers, and I have a feeling that in the next couple of years this larger form factor is going to be very popular, and I can see a lot of people just not buying dedicated gaming devices anymore because they can just go with this.